You know, if you stand on pretty much any street corner in London today, you'll hear a dozen different languages. It's this incredible global city, a real tapestry of cultures. But get this, 2,000 years ago, this whole area was just marshland. Kind of useless, strategically speaking. So how in the world did it become the powerhouse we know today? Okay, let's get into this amazing story of constant, relentless reinvention.
And this quote, it just nails it. It perfectly captures the heart of London's history. It's this endless cycle of catastrophe and then rebirth, of being torn down only to be built back even stronger. It's a theme we're going to see pop up again and again. And this right here is the result of that long, chaotic history. What's absolutely fascinating is that nearly 40% of Londoners today were born outside the UK. Think about that. The city has always been a magnet, just pulling people in from all over the world.
Which brings us right back to the big question, doesn't it? How did this happen? How did a tiny Roman trading post on a swampy riverbank manage to survive invasions, plagues, and city-leveling fires to become not just the capital of an empire, but a modern global hub?
Well, to answer that, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning, back to its very first version under the Romans.
So the Romans show up in 43 AD, and they see the perfect spot for a bridge. They set up a port town they called Londinium. But just 17 years later, it was burned to the ground by the warrior queen Boudica. But the Romans, they didn't give up. They rebuilt it, bigger and stronger, and even threw up a massive defensive wall. But then, by 410 AD, the Roman Empire itself was starting to crumble. The legions packed up and left, and the city, well, it just fell apart.
And we're not talking about some small outpost here. At its absolute peak, Roman Londinium had about 60,000 people living in it. It was a proper Roman city. We're talking forums, amphitheaters, the whole shebang. It was the largest city in all of Britannia.
And yet, just a generation or so after the Romans left, that bustling city of 60,000 became this, just a handful of people squatting in the crumbling ruins. For all intents and purposes, the city was dead.
For about 200 years, those ruins were just left to rot. But you can't keep a good location down. Eventually, that river started to attract new people, and soon enough, new settlers arrived to reshape the land. So the Anglo-Saxons, they come next, and they actually steer clear of the old walled city. They saw these massive Roman ruins and thought they were the work of giants. Honestly, they were probably a little creeped out, maybe thought it was haunted. So instead, they built their own trading town about a mile to the west, and they called it Londonwick. And if you go to Covent Garden today, guess what? You're standing right on top of it.
But then, the Vikings came. After getting hammered by these devastating raids on their exposed town, King Alfred the Great had a pretty brilliant idea. In 886, he ordered everyone to move back inside the old, super defensible Roman walls. So you see what happened? A new threat forced another reinvention, pushing people right back to the original spot.
And this really sets the stage for the medieval period. This was an era that kicked off with the new conquests, saw the city become an immense commercial power, and then ended with its greatest catastrophe yet.
Okay, so after the Norman Conquest in 1066, William the Conqueror laid out a blueprint for London that, believe it or not, still exists. He built the Tower of London to keep an eye on the commercial hub, what we now call the city. And then, just a little ways west, at Westminster, he set up the center for royal and religious power. That dual identity has defined London ever since. By the 14th century, London was this chaotic, wealthy, and very crowded city of about 80,000 people. Then, in 1348, the Black Death arrived, and it was an unimaginable horror. In just 2 years, as many as half of all Londoners were dead. The city was half empty. Its future was completely up in the air.
But true to form, London did recover, and what came next was an era of absolutely explosive growth. But all that expansion was about to get checked by two of the most famous disasters in the city's entire history.
Just look at this population boom. It's incredible. In only 150 years, the city grew 8 times over, from 50,000 people to 400,000, making it the biggest city in Europe. This was the London of Shakespeare and the Globe Theatre, a real cultural and commercial powerhouse.
But this packed wooden city was basically a tinderbox waiting for a spark. And it got a double whammy. First, in 1665, the Great Plague came back with a vengeance, killing 100,000 people. Then, just a year later, a small fire in a bakery on Pudding Lane got caught by a strong wind and became a raging inferno. For 4 straight days, it burned, destroying 85% of the city.
And here we go again, right? That theme of rebirth. From the ashes, a new London was born. They put in new building codes. Everything had to be brick and stone now, making the city way more resilient. The architect Christopher Wren rebuilt dozens of churches, and he crowned his work with the magnificent new St. Paul's Cathedral, a symbol of rebirth that still dominates the skyline today.
All right, let's fast forward to the 19th century. London is now the heart of the biggest empire the world has ever seen. On one hand, it was an age of incredible innovation, the world's first underground railway, a revolutionary sewer system. But on the other hand, it was a city of just brutal inequality. You had these sprawling East End slums, deadly cholera outbreaks, and of course, the terror of Jack the Ripper.
The 20th century would bring London its most modern trial by fire. This would lead to a period of decline before its most recent, and maybe its most dramatic, reinvention yet.
The Blitz during World War II was the city's next great inferno. For 8 solid months, German bombers just pounded London almost every single night. 1 million buildings were damaged or destroyed. And in a crazy echo of the past, photos of St. Paul's Cathedral standing tall amidst the smoke and flames became this powerful symbol of the city's unbreakable spirit.
After the war, London was broke, exhausted, and its empire was falling apart. But out of this decline came, you guessed it, another rebirth. This one was fueled by new arrivals, starting with the Windrush generation, the first big wave of post-war immigrants invited from the Caribbean, and followed by people from India, Pakistan, and all across the former empire. And these new Londoners helped reinvent the city all over again. The abandoned Docklands were transformed into the Canary Wharf Financial District. The 2012 Olympics breathed new life into the East End. London became the diverse, dynamic capital of finance and culture that we all know today. So when you step back and look at the big picture, you see that London's 2,000-year history isn't just one story. It's a whole series of stories. It's a story of surviving Roman withdrawal, Viking raids, plague, fire, and war. And every single time, the city has adapted, rebuilt, and absorbed new people and new ideas.
You know, this whole history of constant change really makes you wonder, from a Roman outpost to a global metropolis, the one thing the city has never done is stand still. So the only real question is, what version of London is going to rise up to meet the challenges of the future?